Before anything else, since I created another class and another file to be the launcher, I removed the HTTPI from here. All right, because I have get rid dot root dot edge child in here when it is ready, but I will use it here in this launcher file. So if it is both auto load and a file and a child of another class, there is a chance that the auto load, there is a chance this throw an exception. All right, so this is why I separated. So let's go. I created a variable called config that will hold our config file. Config files are files that is optimized to save config data for your game. So, for example, if I have volume, resolution, keybinds, and so on for your game, you rather use this config file instead of other files or other way to save it. Right? So I instantiated and I created 4 other variables. First one is the HTTPI. The second is the file path for the config file. So it's config.cfh. Base URL, that will be the IP address for the domain of your server. In this case, is the same that I access in the Mozilla Firefox. And requested update boolean equals to false. This one is just to not delete what I just made. I will explain soon. So in the ready function, I set the on response to uncheck version because this is the first thing I should do, check the version. So I add the HTTPI to the tree, get tree.word.hchild. Then I call load. This load function is to load the config file. So I check if the config file does not exist. I create one and then I load it just to make sure an error won't be thrown. All right. Then I create a variable called final URL that will be the base URL with my context and my endpoint. In this case, the context is game and endpoint is version because I just want to check. Then I call the httpi.request.callDeferred. Why deferred? Because I am adding the httpi to the tree SN. So to prevent any error, I'm calling in the end of the frame. All right, passing my final URL with the method of get. All right. I also created a function called save to save the config file just to make sure I will use it. Actually, I could just replace this part. Yeah, I just figured out this. Okay. Then on check version, using the parameters is the same from the request, all right? So the result, the code, the headers, and the data. That now is a dictionary because here I am converting into JSON, all right? So first I check if my config file have the key section game version. If it does not, I set the value as 0.0.0. Then I check again if the version that come from the version check from the request is different from my current version with the full value of 0.0.0, I will update. All right, so I change the on response from the current unchecked version to on update version. Then I split the files string that will come with the request. All right, the request will the on my database. I will store one string that will be files comma separated. All right, so all my files will be there comma separated in one single tuple. All right. I think this is very economic, but I will warning something that I'm not sure if it's fixed, but just to make sure. Uh, if you will hand write the files, try to order in something like this: non-Godot file first, then the script slash resource, and the last thing should be scenes. Like I did this launcher 4 times, I'm pretty sure, and I had errors that the scenes, since we are like in engine, usually the files is bind by default, but now we are creating the files. So if I create this scene first, okay, this is the error that used to occur. I'm not sure if it's happening currently. The scene will be created, then the script, for example. But when you play the scene, this script won't be attached. So it's but when you invert the order, create the script, then the scene, no error occurred. All right, that's why I recommend to order this way. So after I split, I loop in the files. So first I get the highest number of files I would allow to be downloaded at once in the same request will be 100, but depending on the files, this is too much. Maybe 50 or 20 or 10, you gotta test it. And I check if the file size, for example 200, is greater than my highest number, that is 100. If it is, my highest will be the size of the file size. So basically, like if my files, my remaining files is like 150, all right, 150 is lesser than the 100, so this will be ignored. But if it is not, my highest will be exactly the file size less one. This is basically the last index. Why? Because the next variable is next, is a packed string array, and I slice it from the files at the position 0 to the highest. Alright, so by default, I'm slicing from index 0 to the highest one, that is 100. One, basically 101 files at a time. But if my files is lesser than this, like 60 remaining, my highest will be 60 last one, that is 59. So I will slice from 0 to 69 to 59. All right. Then I request again passing the base URL and the context as game and the endpoint as file, passing the method get and passing to data. All right. The version that comes from the config file, and the next that is an array. And now on update version, the same signature, so header, result, code, header, and data. So first I check if the requested update, that is right here, false, is false, and if my dear game exists. All right. Why? Because if exists, I should remove. So by default, my request update is false, though, so this will be true. And then I will check if there is a folder. Let me just delete, for example, this folder game. So if exists will be removed, and then the request updated will be set to true. Why is this? The last function I just showed, this check version, call use a for is inside of a for. Call this function through the request inside of a for. So for example, if I have to download 300 files, this will be called at least 3 times. I should not remove the folder game thrice, because all my the files that I downloaded before previously will be deleted. So this does not make sense. All right. Then after it, I check if the folder does not exist, because if it does not exist, I will create. So the first check will remove the folder, and the second is if it does not exist, create it. Please pay attention. I am deleting the folder, and all content inside of the folder game. So if you're making a game, please, first of all, create versions or use a repository such as GitHub to save your software versions. And secondly, do not create your scenes and your file games inside of the folder that you will delete, because if you do, all your work will be lost. So please do not remove the folder you are creating things on. All right. Then lastly, I loop inside of the, remember this time with the context game endpoint and the file endpoint files, I retrieve the file name, the path, and the data and the file. So inside of this, I just loop the D. All right. So first of all, I get, it's not extension. I get the base dir from the path. So if my path is something like player slash something, the folder player should be created first. All right. So I check if the dir access, if this directory does not exist. If it does, I will make dir recursive. So if there is folder inside of folders, everything will be created. Then I create a variable called type byte that will use the marshals to convert from base 64, that is the comes from the request, to the raw version of the file. So depending on the file, these will vary. For example, the text and images have different raw versions. But okay, then I create a file with file access passing game slash the path for the game, and with the access mode right. Then I call store buffer passing the bytes, and then I close the file. So this should be enough to create game files already. All right. So what I will do, I will make two text files just for you to check, and then I will create a scene. So with a script, and then we try to make something. Okay, guys, I again committed small flaws. All right, the first one was in here in the highest. I do not need the -1, because since I'm slicing, the last index actually will be ignored. So for example, if I have an array with two index 0 to 1, I would actually slice from 0 to 1, not 0 to 0. Correct? So I change this -1 here in the request. Instead of getting the version from config file, I actually have to use the version coming from the request. So instead of that config file dot get game version actually is the version, right? And in here, right after, update the config file set section key value a version game version to the version, and call the function save. All right. And here in the update on update version, remember that I had these get base dir and create dir recursively, but this file already do this. I do not need to do it now because the file access do it. If you want to, just to make sure, you can keep it, but this is enough. All right, this is enough. So here, for example,